Welcome to Short Stories with Dwarf Fortress Legends. Hearing this is about, I don't know, a month before the actual Steam release, and hearing that just got me in the mood for some classic Dwarf Fortress. So I went and generated a world. And I haven't touched it with Fortress mode or Adventure mode, and I just popped right into Legends, I exported the map, and now I'm browsing it with Legends Viewer. This amazing little project. And I'm going to just go through a couple interesting things I saw right off the bat. I may or may not keep this world, I probably will, I don't see a reason why I would delete it, but this is Alathu Asada, the Domain of Vision. And I'm really going to focus on one story here, well, kind of two. The first is just a spin-off, but then I found this really interesting hydra, okay, one of 3 in the world, and the most powerful one in his story, and who was involved with him. Now, like I said, before I get into that, let's talk a little bit about this kobold civilization. Now, as you can see, I kept the world size normal. I generated about 550 years of history. Turned this number of civilizations down, things like that, so there's only like a couple dwarf and elf civilizations, 3 human, 3 kobold, like 6 goblin, and a bunch of necromancer cults for whatever reason. Now, one of these kobold groups, I believe, is way over here on this far right island, if I'm not mistaken, and they are called Shrifiseldis, I guess. And I peeked in on them, and those poor guys, if you can feel sorry for kobolds, look what happened. So, okay, their cave, they found a cave called, oh, I'm sorry, this is in the middle. I was thinking of a different kobold group, but regardless, they started in a cave that was lovingly named the Flickering Shafts. And anyway, in year number 1, the beginning of the world, this site government, which just formed, of this kobold civilization that we're looking at, constructed a marketplace in the Flickering Shafts cave. A few months later, in the same year, a bronze colossus shows up, Zerko's squashed father, the Umber Grip, and completely wipes them out, thus ending the entirety of this civilization halfway through the year. Not even halfway through the year. So I thought, well that's not something you see every day. So I'm going to go into this cave and see its history, you know. So let's go look at the Flickering Shafts, shall we? Say, oh, we're kind of greeted with a lot of stuff here. Okay, well let's break this down a little bit. It has the market that we know about. It has year 1, they constructed this market. And then, okay, here's all the kobolds becoming criminals, thieves, miners. Yep, it's, you know, starting about their business as a beginning civilization. There's the Bronze Colossus showing up and attacking and striking down every single one of those kobolds, obviously. And as mentioned, he routed this government and destroyed the cave into a ruin in the meantime. So then what happened? Well, this is where it gets interesting. About 5 years later, some giant named Comet Calls, the Justice of Jewels, stole just a random river spirits drink from a nearby human town of the Glowing Empire civilization and brought it to this ruined cave. And a few years later, he steals something else from the same town, brought it to the cave. And you can see the pattern here. He steals a dwarven beer drink from another fortress nearby of a dwarven civilization. And then 4 years later, this angry dwarf who had his beer stolen confronted the giant and was probably the first to be struck down by Comet Calls. Well, about 15 years later, he steals a plant or something, a bush fruit, a caper bush fruit, whatever that is, and brings it to the cave for whatever reason. Steals an earring a few years later, and then starts getting confronted by humans. This one was smashed and struck down. Steals some amulets, an egg for... Okay, like, he steals an egg, right, and brings it to the cave. Like, giants are like dragons, okay? They like hoarding things, and this one is no exception. Oh, this is interesting. A one-humped camel brain meat was stolen from the Glowing Empire and brought to the Flickering Shafts. Okay, Bone Jackal Bracelet. The humans are confronting and being struck down. some gems, a raw fish. Like, dude, do you not know how to go fish yourself? I mean, he is a giant, so to be fair, he might not. Now, in spring of 82, all these names, and you can look back up here and see that these are all people and dwarves and kobolds. Oh, actually, this was the original colony, actually. Not just the people who confronted the giant in this cave, but the original kobolds were all brought back to life by some random group of necromancers, and a few years later, it happens again with the rest of the bodies. So now we have a bunch of undead, zombified kobolds, dwarves, and humans. I'm assuming they wandered off, but being brought back to life as they are confronting this champion giant, basically. And it just kind of goes on this endless loop of things getting stolen every few years by this giant, and you see no one confronted him for many a year, until 171, which is a good long while later. And of course being struck down, and again being brought back from the dead. And this just happens. Giant steals things, people confront giant, people get struck down, people get brought back from the dead. Goes on and on. In fact, this giant's kids even get involved. If you go down to this late spring of 224, Golden Actions, who we can see is a child of this giant, and the father, which never sticks around, typical giant fashion apparently, they start getting in on the stealing action. So they're stealing dwarven rum and, you know, just any random thing they can get their giant paws on. And I believe Comet Calls has one more kid in the year 300 something. However, is it Golden Actions? No, we knew that already. Where is it? Maybe I'm wrong. I know she had a couple kids, but I don't remember where they are. Comet Calls, Golden Actions, and you can see though, it's just really interesting. Oh, there it is. Yeah, this this other female giant. So I don't know. Was Golden Actions female as well? No, male. So she had a son and a daughter, and they just went on an absolute thieving rampage for hundreds of years. And then they started stealing like artifacts, like weapons, just like a silver spear. Hang on. Okay, Golden Actions actually used a warhammer, and I don't know. Oh yeah. So yeah, Golden Actions stole this warhammer from a nearby, it looks like, I don't know, the Birds of Wiping is one of the necromancer factions, and ended up using it to clobber, like, it's just an amazing thing that just goes over and over. And you can drill into these, obviously, and see just the history of each one of these giants. And they're all still alive, by the way. In the year 550, all three of these giants and the father, I'm assuming, are still alive somewhere in the world. Probably in the Flickering Shafts or nearby. And I just thought that was such an interesting way of, like, a history of a cave, you know? Just a little cave. And it was supposed to be this blossoming civilization of kobolds, if you can call it that, and ended up being just a horde for a giant family. Just really cool stuff. Okay, now that that's over with, let's talk about a hydra. This hydra was born before time, was associated with the spheres of muck, rebirth, and strength, and of course, being a hydra, has many enemies. Many enemies. So, I'm not going to go through every single one of his events here. The main thing I'm trying to focus on is his number of kills, and I wish it would show the number of kills in his character page, but I had to look him up in historical figures, and he has 79 kills. And if we look at other hydras, I don't know if it'll let me search because this page is exceedingly slow. There's a lot of characters on it. Okay, you can see, okay, here's another hydra. It only lived until year 60, had 12 kills. Okay, whoop-de-doo. And then, finally, we have another hydra who has a whopping 0 kills, was struck down in year 12. In fact, let's take a look at him, because that's honestly rather pathetic for a 7-headed dragon, isn't it? Okay, also Muck, Rebirth, and Strength. Xylar attacked a dwarf site government and was struck down. interestingly, with 0 kills. So I bet if we look at this, yeah, Hydra attack. It doesn't say who killed them. I guess it doesn't really matter, but regardless, this is the most powerful of the 3 Hydras in the world, as I mentioned. 79 kills. So let's see. Let's just really quick skim through these events. Okay, he's becoming an enemy for, I'm sure, obvious reasons. Killing goblins, killing dwarves, attacking and just annihilating all these people and creatures. Humans, dwarves, just many people. And I'm not seeing like any important people he's striking down, just random, you know, rampages and events. And if you see, like, these are marked as historical events that are told in stories by people across the globe. Becoming enemies everywhere, just, you know, typical dragon stuff, nothing too interesting. Oh, well, this is kind of interesting, right? In 149, he went on such a rampage that people started worshiping this dude. Like, look at this. He became a religion. Like, all these things are now just worshiping this Hydra because of the sheer terror that he instills in everyone's hearts. Until Mr. Gozru, the Goblin, born in 283, with a goal of ruling the world, shows up to wreak havoc on this Hydra's life. Let's find out a little bit about Gozru. Okay, we have typical mother-father. He worships a couple deities. He has spouses, children, and lovers galore, and we'll get to that. He's been in several factions. He's not part of a... Like, yes, he's part of a goblin civilization, but he's also been involved in multiple human governments and religions, interestingly. I don't know exactly how that works, but either way. Born in 283, right? So when he was 4 years old, he was involved in a persecution among his religion, along with all these other goblins and dwarves. Oh, there's a vampire in there. Multiple vampires, okay. Well, I don't know what kind of religion that was, but it was a thing. And then, you know, apart from that, typical childhood, who hasn't been persecuted at 4 years old, he became friends with some random other goblins, and then he became a farmer when he was, what, 12? Whatever. He's a farmer in Wayplain, a town of the Glowing Empire, which, if we remember, is... Oh, I thought it was human, right? Yeah, it was human. So he's a farmer in a human town, a goblin farmer in a human town. And let's assume that he had... Oh, look, he's persecuted again. So this guy is either joining the wrong religions or there's just a lot of judgment going on. But at any rate, after that persecution, he decides, man, maybe farmer's not the life for me. I'm going to stop being a farmer. I'm going to be a thresher instead. And then a year later, he gave up being a thresher and became a miller. Now he's changing towns, and he finds himself a goblin lover, marries her. Stops being a miller. Oh, he's going to be an animal caretaker instead. And I don't know what happened. I don't know, maybe she... yes, she died. For some reason she died. And then he found another lover and married her. Stopped being an animal caretaker, and all of a sudden, 315, Gozru decides he's going to become a monster slayer. Okay? Trains intense Batman regimen style training for 10 years. Thinks, oh, I'm good enough. He goes and confronts a giant jaguar named Cactus Sunder and kills it. So, okay, that's pretty good, right? 4 years later, after more intense training, he decides to confront the Hydra with 79 kills in the Cave of Crude Mine and actually kills the thing, the absolute madman. Kills this 7-headed Hydra that has being worshipped and has songs sung about him throughout the world, just struck down by some ex-farmer goblin from some random nearby town. And as a result, gets this weapon that he used, Bronze Battle Axe, named after defeating this insane monster. Naturally, a few years later, he's the champion of the Humble Daggers, which is the Dwarf site government that I believe he's staying in. He's now given himself an identity, and now the fun begins. Okay, Gozru grew up, had a boring, persecuted life. Farmer, miller, animal caretaker, monster slayer, and decided he's done with all the adventuring. And for the rest of his life, all he does is marry, divorce, find lovers, break up with lovers, find more lovers, marry, divorce, love, marry, divorce, love, marry, divorce, love. And you can see this absolute Chad of a goblin is still alive, still has a goal of ruling the world. And I don't know, this story just struck me as being extremely entertaining, and I hope you found it as entertaining as I do. I may still scour this world for other stories if people like this, but for now, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of this absolute Chad. Have a good one.